Fall is such a beautiful time of the year. The maples with their brilliant reds and the golden oaks are just turning. I love to watch the leaves as they take a gentle ride to the ground. Well, my squirrels know winter is coming because they're collecting acorns like crazy and are hiding them in every nook and cranny in the barn. It's the perfect time of the year to make Buckeye beauty. Well, I made this wall hanging out of beautiful scrappy fall fabrics. Well, the quilt is a combination of 4 patches and half square triangles. Judy Jackson did the quilting. You know, it was so much fun to make because I used a box of 5-inch charm squares that I had. Now, they're also called nickel squares. Plus, I added 1 tone-on-tone background that complements the mediums and the darks. I didn't have to gather up all the scraps and cut the pieces. And what a time saver. Jenna Mitchell is just like the squirrels. She's ready for winter with this Buckeye beauty out of holiday reds, greens, and black. Oh, it's beautiful. And she did the magnificent quilting. Well, the state of Ohio is known for its Buckeye trees. The leaves open green in the spring and drop in the fall. Leaf coloration is orange to red. Well, if you watch any sports, you know how enthusiastic the Buckeye fans are. Well, the nut from the Buckeye gave the tree its name because the nut resembles the eye of the male deer or buck, with dark around the outside and lighter brown in the center. Although I couldn't find real Buckeyes, Sue made you traditional Buckeye candy. Well, she made it in Iowa with her grandmother when she was a little girl. Now, it looks just like the eye of the deer with the light in the middle, dark around the outside. Well, how about a cooking lesson to give you some energy for quilting? I know you'll remember the recipe. It's very easy. Well, the light brown is a mix of 1½ cups of peanut butter, a box of powdered sugar, and 1 stick of butter. Just mix it up, chill it for an hour, and roll it into 2-inch balls. Then you melt a 12-ounce bag of chocolate chips with 1 tablespoon of shortening. Just dip it in the chilled balls and be sure to leave a little light brown for the eye. That's it, a delicious treat. Well, Buckeye candy is almost as easy as a Buckeye quilt. Join me. Clara Stone designed Buckeye Beauty in 1906 and published it in her book, Practical Needlework. Well, she was living in Boston at the time, and she must have been influenced by the beautiful fall foliage, the colors of the chrysanthemums, and the beautiful fruit. Just wonderful. Well, the block is simple. There's only 2 different patches to it. There's a half square triangle and a 4 patch. Well, in this one, it's actually made up of 4 large stars. In 1 star, there are 8 dark points, and then the rest is made up of that chain through the middle with the 4 patch. Pretty easy to do. Well, Judy Jackson did the quilting. She did wonderful free motion quilting in those open areas. And then in the dark points, ooh, she just did this little swirly stuff. It's too cute. And then there's a framing border and a wider border to finish off the quilt. Well, selecting the fabric is easy. You can use those packages of 5-inch squares plus a background, or just dig into your scraps and cut a bunch of 5-inch squares. Well, I started out with my background and I cut 32 5-inch squares and then just divided them into half into 2 stacks of 16. I have 16 mediums lined up and 16 darks. And you just work back and forth and place it and just kind of squint at it, see if it works in the medium. If it doesn't, move it to the dark. Move back and forth until you have them together. Well, this is 1/4 of the block. It's basically made of the 2 half square triangles, 1 dark square and 1 background makes both of those. And then you have 2 4 patch, a background and a medium make these 2 squares. Pretty easy to do. Well, let me just start with the medium, and I'll show you how to make that one. Take the medium, place it on the bottom, and one background square right sides together to it. Now, the best ruler to use right now is the 6-inch square up, just a kind of a small block, so select a ruler accordingly. Now, it's 5 inches. We want to divide it in half, so line up the 2.5-inch line along the left edge and just draw a straight line. Now, how easy is that? Well, you can mark them all up, do all of the assembly line sewing, but right now I'm just going to show you one. So take your presser foot, drop your 1/4-inch line on the left side, stitch right down along there, turn it around, and just sew down the opposite side. And you're going to repeat that. You could just have a long train going right along there. Works easy. And once you have your 1/4-inch seam on both sides, you're going to have a 1/2 inch from seam to seam. Just take it, cut it on one straight line, turn them over so the medium is on the top, and then you can just use your wooden iron and press that seam towards the medium. Doesn't matter, your wooden iron or your regular iron, just get it pressed so it's good and flat. Take these two pieces and place them back right sides together. Now you want them to match in the middle, so I just use my fingers, wiggle along like that until they're lined up, and then draw another straight line right through the middle. Line up 2.5 on the edge and just mark one direction and the other. Got that nice straight line. And once again, you're just going to sew right down one side, kind of feel right in the middle at that seam, and then turn it around and sew the other side. Well, Clara Stone named this Buckeye Beauty, and it's interesting how other names also came about. Now, just by turning that 1/4 square, you can actually make a railroad block, and Ruth Finley called it Railroad Crossing in 1933. That's a good name. How about Hourglass? That makes sense too. Wallace Farmer named that in 1929. Okay, let's just take this, cut it in half on the line. We're going to check it out, see if they match. Oop, that's pretty good. Right there with the one and the second one. Good match. Now, we want this center to lay flat. So turn it over from the wrong side, and with your fingers, just push the seams in opposite directions. And those center stitches pop open. Let me get that. Oop, there it goes. Pops right open. Take your finger, mush that right in there so you have a nice 4 patch right in the middle. Flat in the middle, flat on the other side, and then repeat with the second side. You start to get a feel of just how these pieces are going to push so they lay flat, and work that right in there. Now, it would be great if all of these outside edges lined up, but from experience, I've learned that you really need to square these patches up. Now, the largest size that we could possibly do would be 4 1/4. I see right here I have 4 3/8, about 4 1/2. So I'm going to go to 4 1/4. To help myself out, I took a second 6-inch square up ruler and put some little tick marks. Half of 4 1/4 would be 2 1/8. So I put a little piece of tape right there, and then again here. And then to help me find the outside edge, I put another piece of tape lined up at 4 1/4. Perfect. So turn your patch right side up and place the 2 1/8 right on the seam there and there. And you can see as it goes down along, it's all at 2 1/8. So the ruler is perfectly centered on the patch. So trim 2 sides, take these little edges, not much at all, and get rid of them. Now take the 2 sides that you've already trimmed, turn, and place 4 1/4 right on the outside edge. Let me line that up. Again, it's 2 1/8, 2 1/8. Perfect. Trim those 2 sides, not much left, and just get rid of that. Well, I'm going to go through all of these medium squares, get my 4-patch done, and then I'll show you how to use the dark and the half square triangles. It's rewarding to know I'm halfway through those patches. The darks are next, so take your 5-inch dark, place it on the bottom, and put a 5-inch background square right sides together to it. Line up those outside edges. Well, this time we're going to draw a diagonal line, corner to corner, and the best ruler to use right now is the 4x14. Not quite as long as the 6x24, but it works great. And then just a 1/4-inch seam on both sides. Let me line this up a little bit better. And you know, your stiletto really helps out whenever you're trying to keep the edges together. So just line it up like this, zoom right down there, and then turn it around and do the opposite side. Well, we're still on this patch, different patch names. How about Jacob's Ladder? Well, Grandmother Clark named it Jacob's Ladder in 1933, but the one that I just do not get is Nancy Page's name. She named it Going to Chicago. I was thinking maybe it was for the Chicago World's Fair in 1933. Okay, there's the seam right down along there. Take your 4x14, cut it in half. Now this patch has to be squared up to the same size as the 4-patch. So I'm going to use the triangle square up ruler right now. It's to be 4 1/4, and so just find the 4. Right along here is the line 4, and along the outside edges of the ruler are marks every 1/8 inch. So I put a piece of tape at 4 1/4, just go straight across to the other side 4 1/4. You line up the tape with the stitches and get it centered on there. Oop, that's good. Got it centered on there. This time there's a little bit more to trim off, but you really need to do that so it's the same size as the 4-patch. Once that's trimmed, turn it to the dark side, press the seam so that it's to the dark side, and then just cut off those tips, one on each side. And that's it for the half square triangles. Well, let me finish those up, and I'll show you how to sew the block together. Let's start out with a little Buckeye folklore. Well, the nut is considered a good luck charm, and folks would rather carry it in place of a rabbit's foot or a 4-leaf clover. Well, I wish you luck when you're putting these scrappy pieces together and setting these seams up so they all lock together. Well, I recommend that you get all of your pieces done first and then start mixing them up. Lay out your 1/4 pieces. Make sure you have nice variety between your mediums and your darks. Ooh, just play with them, have a good time. Now, sometimes you'll look at a medium and you say, well, that looks kind of like a dark. But by the time you press it beside another dark triangle, then you can see there is a difference. This is definitely the medium of the two. And the same thing here. How about these two? Definitely the medium beside that dark. Play with them, have a good time. And then take 2. Now, so you don't have so much of a scrappy look, I do like to use the same dark triangles and the same 4-patch, but you can mix them up however you want. Place the dark triangles so they touch like that in the middle, and then your 4-patch, make a diagonal line right through there and push them in like that. This is the most important thing to watch for so they lock together. When you push this one in there, turn the 4-patch and make sure that the center seams both go down. It's going down here, and then flip this one over. The seam is going down. Then the seam's going across this way. Always have to press over towards the left. This one's going to the left and to the left. You might have to turn them around till you get them right. I like to sew vertical rows. So just take the row on the right and flip it over to the row on the left. And we're just going to sew straight down, keeping them connected together. Now at this point, get it lined up at the top. Use that needle down, get it in there to hold it. If they're not exactly the same when you just flip them down there, then grab hold the opposite end, hold it down flat with your stiletto, so down to that point, and then just butt on that second piece. You're not going to be fighting the seams as you go. It's really great. Okay, match up this end right here, hold it flat, and zip right across there. Now I don't clip the connecting thread. All I do is just take these like this, open them up, and then flip right sides together. And at this point, we're going to push the top seam up. This is going up, and the underneath seam is going down. That way they're going to lock together even better whenever you get those all lined up. Okay, needle down, hold that. And when I get to that center point, I just open it, feel it, really wiggle in there. They'll lock when they're flat. You know that they're locking together, and that's what you really want. You know, the Buckeye, whenever man eats it in excessive quantities, is actually poisonous. Oh my gosh, it can make them really sick, even kill them. But it's interesting because squirrels can eat Buckeyes and not get sick on them. Pretty amazing. Okay, I'm just going to take this piece now and check out the center. Looking good in the center, matched up well. And we're going to do that tricky thing, that little four-patch thing that we did before. This time there's a connecting thread, so you need to take a pair of scissors and slip it right in, clip those scissors, and just lay it down. Let me see, I want to lay it this way. And we're going to swirl those seams right around. It's going to go like this, to the left, top to the right. Just work at it in the center, and it creates that four patch, just like we had before. Well, when you swirl those seams around, then when you put the blocks together, then they lock beautifully. Let me just get that pressed. Whoa, that iron is so hot. Just get that right over there. There. You can see a little four patch in every one of these pieces, just like that. So they all swirl around from the center. Pretty good. Okay, now, we did those seams. We got those all locking. And when you look at your block, make sure that you've got your 1/4 inch seam right here and here. Sometimes people think they've made a mistake. Nope, it's perfect, just like that. Now, lay out your 4/4, and we want to make an X with the four patch. So we've got an X going through here, but let's just turn this around like this, and we'll do one more turn here. We've got the X going here, the X going here. Now, there's something tricky to match on these seams as well, and it's right here at this seam. On the left, the seam should go up, and on the right, the seam should go down. And let's just go ahead and push those together. You'll see they're going in opposite directions. Actually, they're not going opposite right here, so let's just turn it around one more time and see if it works. Okay. Now we can see it's going up here and down, and now it is actually going to lock right here. One's going up and one's going down. So those will lock. Now we'll check these. So let's just fold them back and look. Okay, right here, these two seams. This one's supposed to go up, and this one's supposed to go down, and they will. Those are going to lock together. This is good. And then look up at the four patch. The one is supposed to go up, and the other one's supposed to go down. Oh my gosh, I think they're all going to lock together. So now, they're just like the smaller block. They're just 4 pieces. We're just going to take the row on the right, flip it right sides together to the row on the left, and just sew straight down along there. Now, this time, I'm going to allow you 1 pin. That's pretty good. You're lucky to have 1 pin. So it's going to be right here. You want to open these pieces, look at them, kind of line them up and lock them together. And you can take a pin right here on the top, put it through right where those seams cross, go right underneath here, and get the pin going right in there. Kind of squeeze those together. That's the 1 pin. That'll work good. Now these will just naturally lock together, so you don't really need to lock. You can just wiggle those in there. Well, let's just see. Really helps, that good old trick with your tongue. So you keep these pieces all lined up. Okay, going in there, and I'm checking underneath. I'm looking at the top. Oh my gosh, I hate to unsew. I always just hope to get it right in the beginning. So my stitches are going right across along there, and now I'm just going to line this up right here, hold it down flat. And you would just naturally line this one up and keep on going, but you know me, I'm always in a hurry, anxious to see how it looks. So let's just check it out. I get to look first, see if that's perfect. Oh my gosh, look at that. Couldn't be better. Really quite happy the way those seams all line up. And that's just because you press them in the right directions. Well, I finished this whole block, and it's the same thing. We can do that tricky 4-patch right in the middle, but this is the last seam we sewed. We went down. Once again, it's got that connecting thread, and so just as we did on the larger piece, we're going to swirl the seams. Goes around like this, take this around, and then that seam just splits to open. You can work with it, get that 4-patch in there, and then when you put your 4 blocks all together, they also will lock. I have got to get my fingers right in there, get that picked out. This is always the fun part. And there we go. A little bit of pressing. And how about a mush first? Oh, yes. Shot of steam. Perfect. Looking good. Now I've got to get 3 other blocks, just like this one. I'm not falling behind. I'm getting this quilt done. I love the way the blocks looked, so I added 2 more blocks. Now it's long enough to snuggle under on these cool fall evenings. Now the first border is 2 inches wide. The second border is 4.5 inches wide. I just have the quilting and binding left to do, and I'll be done. Well, Sue found a great box of 5-inch squares with lots of purple and green. Well, the dark purple makes dynamic star points, while the 4-patch are a bit softer in green and yellow. And there's a wonderful leaf pattern quilted in the border. You know, this is just a perfect size for a wall hanging. Well, this pattern looks great in brighter colors as well. Sue bought a box of pink squares with proceeds going to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation to support research for a cure. Well, the fabric is just so fun with polka dots. There's checks, stripes, and stars. Sue machine quilted a simple X through the 4 patches. I love the stripe she used in the border, and then she repeated it cut on the bias for her binding. It's just perfect for rounding off the corners. Well, Sue's signature is her pieced backs. She didn't leave out one single 5-inch square. You know, there are no scraps left at her house. She starts out fresh every time. Well, Sue made this quilt in memory of Ida Mae Bouchard. Now, that was her husband's mother who passed away far too young from breast cancer. And here he is with his mom. Now, Sue knows her husband, Ken, will treasure this quilt forever. Just darling. Well, Teresa found a box of 6-inch squares stacked away in her sewing room, and she put them together with this sweet green background. She squared the patches up to 5.5 inches, the largest size she could get from both pieces. So you can make this pattern from almost any size squares. On the back, she put this cuddly, soft fabric. It's just waiting for the next baby in her family. So take a walk, breathe deep, just kick some leaves, and then enjoy making a Buckeye quilt.